Thank you very much. Today, I'm going to be presenting a topic, AI and labor, right? Like, what does it really mean when AI takes your job? Like, what are we talking about? All right. And so this presentation that you're about to see today, this is essentially a test run. Like I told our wonderful host, think of this as, a stand-up comedian, doing some open mic nights, right? Like that's kind of what's going on, and you're going to see it. So this is actually taken from chapters 8 and 9 of my forthcoming book, AI for Humanity, Architecting a Better Future, right? Which is going to be releasing in summer of this year. Oh, look at that. There it is. So this is my coming book. This is something, one of the irons I have in the fire that I've been working on. It's a summary of about 2 years of research and development. Literally traveled the world. It's an amazing story. And so this is actually my first book, already working on the second one. Don't worry, I'll see you again next year. So what is in this book? Like, what are we really talking about? So this is really the context of everything that I've been developing. So you see by the first 7 chapters, we really go into defining like, hey, what's going on in our society? Like, what are these forces that are shaping? Like, we have climate change, we have fiscal instability, we have institutional degradation, like all across our globe. Like, why is that? What's happening? Well, hey, guess what, folks? I think we're starting a 6th wave. I think we're starting a 6th chondrotic wave, right? And what's going to go on is that that as artificial intelligence, it becomes the new organizing logic of our society, right? We're looking at a multipolar world with the rise of, in my opinion, 4 what I determine AI hegemons: the United States, China, the EU, and India. And then you see around chapter 7 right there where it all comes together and like, hey, these are how these forces are interacting across our now global society, our now multipolar global society, right? And what the central danger of that is for humanity. Chapter 8 and 9, we start getting to the technical stuff. Like, these are actual formulas that I've developed to actually calculate, and this is what we're getting in with this presentation, how AI affects your baseline labor calculations for your organization as you transition and incorporate this technology, right? But hey, wait a minute. If we can measure AI's effect on labor, we can measure productivity, which means we can measure, the amount of cash, right? Like, so, but where do those productivity gains go? Do they go to the oligarchs? I don't think so. I'm not down with that. I don't like it. I don't want it. And I'm here to help prevent it, right? So I want, instead of mass layoffs, what you see now, shorter work weeks. But hey, where do we go after that? Well, you know what? We talk about realigning our society, right? Our time, what the 8-hour workday was made by Henry Ford, for an assembly line. Well, you know what? Never in my life have I sat on an assembly line and pulled a lever and pushed a button. Never once worked a die-cast machine. Bet you guys haven't either, but we still organize our society that way. Time, right? Like the daylight savings time phenomenon that happens in the United States of America, where I'm located. I mean, what? That was a World War I production mechanism that is still impacting our society today, right? But then we get into playbooks, right? What are you, a business government executive, a policymaker, the actual builders of tech, or you're just the general public? What do you need to know, and what do you need to do, and how do you need to incorporate AI into your life? We got playbooks coming for you too, all right? And then after that, we have those chapters that impact our society. Avoiding mass layoffs by scaling the formulas. From productivity to UBI, how do we calculate that social dividend and then give it back to the people? Again, we're trying to prevent all that gains from going to the top 1%. Don't want that anymore. Destabilizing for our society. Bad for everybody. No bueno. We need to stop that. And this tech transition is the perfect place to do that, right? Because that's how we build AI first organizations. Get to that with RAG and regulation as code. And then the final chapter, I just put a bow on everything and explain how our decisions that we make today are architecting the actual future of where our society will be once the 7th wave starts in about 40 to 45 years. Okay, so that's really what we're looking at as far as a time horizon for this one book, and I'm already working on the next one. So with that, about the author, hey, it's me, I'm Matt. That QR code, that's my LinkedIn profile. Feel free to go ahead and scan it, stay in touch. And if you'd like to meet me in person, I've actually got a little bit of a roadshow coming up. So not only is my book coming out the summer of 2026, I'm going to be doing some traveling. Hey, so this is my European Union and US conference tour. So you'll see it there at the top in June 23rd and 25th of this year. Might be summer. I'm going to be giving the keynote workshop for the Space Studies program at the International Space University in Strasbourg, France, titled The Great Alignment, Harmonizing AI, Law, and Operations for a Cooperative Space Age, right? So That's what we're going to be getting into when I'm in France. You'll see for July and August, those right now I am scheduled to attend and I'm waiting on my talks to be approved. We're going to do AI and labor, which is going to be the second generation of what you're going to see today. We're going to talk about AI for humanity, working on that separately. I'm going to should be in Las Vegas, Nevada, giving another talk on AI and labor. And I'm going to wrap it up in September, right, with a conversation, AI for humanity, because I'm also a member of the International Science Committee for the International Conference on Robotics, Ethics, and Standards. So there, if you want to meet in person, you want to shake hands, you want to talk about AI and the possibilities for our future, that's pretty much my schedule as it pertains now, and then look for some of those time gaps to get filled in as we move closer to landing. All right. So now, without further ado, we've gone into what we're talking about, where it's coming from, what's coming out, and then where I'm going to be next. If you want to shake hands, now let's get into AI and labor. How is it affecting your world? So here's the uncomfortable truth, right? So when AI makes your team 26% more productive, you face a choice that will define your organization's future. I already see the duplicative. I get it. Again, test run. That 26%, that's coming from the application of formulas. Buy my book. All right, so what's actually collapsing, right? When you install AI into the organization, agentic AI doesn't just make tasks faster, right? By eliminating the structural need for the organizational hierarchy itself. Why? Because for centuries, we've had layers of management because information travels slowly and human attention was scarce. Oop, hold on. Uh-oh, got to switch that. Sorry, again, this is live. Okay, so a data point would take weeks to bubble up from operations through analysis, committees, to executives, and then decisions would then flow back down your hierarchy. Every layer of the hierarchy, that middle management, right, exists because humans couldn't process everything at once. But agentic AI with RAG, which is called it's an acronym for Retrieval Augmented Generation, fundamentally changes this. So information that now took weeks to run up from the front line can now move in seconds. So the structural justification of why your organization exists like it exists is gone now, okay? Because it's actually a 3-layer collapse. So not only it happens on 3 independent layers that actually form the core of what your organization is. First, your information architecture, right? So think of this as all your databases, all your spreadsheets, all your My Lists, whatever, your Google Drives, whatever you may have in your org, okay? So as your data silos unify through the deployment of agentic AI, RAG gives agents essentially instant access across your entire organizational knowledge base, thereby collapsing your information architecture. When you collapse your information architecture, authority becomes explicit, right? Because as an AI agent can now retrieve context from your entire knowledge base instantly, CRM, supply chain, financials, right? It's all at once. Then your decision architecture now must define your thresholds. What can an agent approve versus what needs a human? That human in the loop. And placing human in the loop practices into your agentic AI workflows is essentially you re-architecting the decision framework of your entire organization. What do humans decide? What do AIs decide? And then, of course, we got on with the organizational architecture, because if you've reorganized your information, you reorganize how, when, and who makes decisions, then the layers that buffer that previous information flow to control the flow of information, to ensure proper decision hierarchy, is no longer needed, right? So now you need to redesign your entire organization around what humans actually contribute now to the organization post-agentic AI: judgment, ethics, creativity. If you only fix one layer, which the vast majority of organizations are doing, the others will sabotage your AI initiatives, right? Because again, there is an incongruency and a natural friction that develops. So your org chart, getting into this, is a latency artifact, right? Every layer exists because information was scarce, and humans, we're kind of slow, right? And hierarchy distributed the limited attention of humans. Committees existed because no one person could hold all the context. Approval chains exist because coordination is manual. But when AI removes those constraints, when an agent can instantly retrieve comprehensive context and execute decisions within guardrails, those bottlenecks are gone, right? The structure of your organization now becomes actively harmful if you keep it in place, right? Because information will move at machine speed, but your org chart forces it through human approval chains designed for a world that's quite frankly fading away. So what's the real scenario playing out now? So let's make this concrete. So we have a vice president of engineering sitting down with her CFO. They've deployed agentic AI across their 20-person software team. And again, this is the example in my book. Please buy it. I work hard on it. So all in all, after everything's said and done, your productivity gains are 26%. The CFO says, hey, I see 900K in annual savings from cutting 5 people, right? Pulling that 26% back into the org, right? However, the engineering VP knows that those 5 people carry that institutional knowledge. Why the system was architected the way it was, which shortcuts now lead to crises, who mentors the juniors. So now your VP of engineering, what does she do? She proposes a 4-day work week instead. Sounds kind of nice, right? Same headcount, same pay, 0 calls. But the CFO pushes back. We'd lose the 900K in savings, the CFO says. And this conversation is happening right now everywhere. And most organizations, honestly, don't have the frameworks just to choose constantly. Hi, I'm Matt. That's where I come in. So the labor formula makes that quantifiable. So here's where we move from narrative to actual math. So as a traditional baseline, you have 20 people, 135 hours each year working on a project, right? So that'll give you 2,700 hours in total. Now, when you deploy AI, that's that LAI, right? In handling coordination, handoffs, and approvals, what we call, or I call in the book, the AI collapsed stack, right? Labor now drops to 1,990 hours. So that's 710 free hours of labor. That's a 26% reduction. And it's $75 an hour fully loaded cost. That's $53,250 in free capacity per employee per year. Cool, awesome. I'm sorry, total. Whoops, bad. So the question is, what do you do with it, right? So the formula is value neutral, right? How we measure AI's impact on labor is values neutral, right? You can justify layoffs with it, you can justify shorter works with it, or you could justify redeploying those productivity gains across your organization. The math does not decide, the people making the decisions to do, right? So again, this is how your conscious decisions through agentic AI deployment into your organization affect the organization itself. So now let's talk about the 710 free hours, right? So really we have 3 choices, right? So path A is what most people choose. These are the AI layoffs, right? Cut the 5 people, save the 900K, but your institutional knowledge walks out the door, right? And that's what we're seeing all over the place, all over our society. Path B, sharing, gain sharing. So we move down and we take that 26%, round it out to 25, 32-hour work weeks. We got the same pay, retention soars, and people flourish, right? Or we have redeployment. We keep the same hours. We move people from the drudgery, right, of that information coordination, why that org hierarchy exists. We empower them with AI, and then we redeploy those gains throughout the organizations, right? Each one of these paths, A, B, or C, that you can choose through agentic AI deployment, right, is value neutral, okay, but mathematically sound. And each of them have real consequences. So which you choose depends on what you actually value as a leader, as a board, as a member of a board of directors, as a VP. Like, your values will be reflected into your organization by the decisions that you make. That is the fork in the road for humanity as it comes to what you're experiencing on an individual and organizational level. Let's dive in. Path A, extraction. This is what most people do, right? So you cut 5 people, the board loves it, the stock price goes up for the quarter, because again, thanks to capitalism, we're playing till next quarter. It's not like we're having any vision for the long term, much less even a year down the road, right? So your 5 experienced developers now lose their job, their families face stress, the institutional knowledge is gone, and then the survivors, the remaining team members, feel guilt and exposure, right? Because the best people, the ones you most want to keep, they often end up leaving in first. So over 3 to 5 years, yeah, you gained 900K off the bat, but the knowledge loss tax and the cultural impact exceed any of those savings, right? Because now you need to hire new people to replace those that left, right? Those new hires need months to ramp up, quality dips, but your quarterly earnings look great, because again, you're playing to the 6 inches in front of your face. This is the extraction path, and it's short-term thinking masked as efficiency. All it is. Let's talk about what few consider, right? Keep everyone, go down to 32-hour work weeks, same salaries, and it's zero cost in the sense that you're not capturing that 900K. But what do you really gain from that? Okay. So in the United Kingdom's major 4-day work week trial, 92% of companies ended up continuing it, right? Turnover in tech drops from 13 to 15% to 5 to 8%. At replacement cost of 50 to 200% for employee, reducing this turnover saves 150 to 450K per year on a 20-person team, right? So that's 15 to 50% of what you left on the table with Path A. Plus, burnout fell 70%, code quality improves, architectural decisions are sounder, people have energy for innovation, and over 5 years, Path B outperforms Path A on total value every single time in every single study I've analyzed. But now let's look at Path C, because that's how we get to Path B. So redeployment, strategic growth, all right? Keep your headcount and hours constant, but redirect those 710 hours of freed labor to higher value work. Complex architectural refactoring that prevents future crises, strategic projects that enable scaling, technical debt reduction. With 710 free hours across that 20-person team, your team can now tackle 3 to 4 additional complex projects per year worth on average 150K in strategic value. Okay, so that brings you to about 530K of additional output if you reinvest those gains. Plus, you get the retention and the morale benefits of Path B as you're growing. So you have zero direct salary costs, your org chart looks the same, but your competitive position strengthens dramatically. This is the ambition path. So if you're an organization and you're looking to deploy agentic AI, the smart money, Path C redeployment to strategic growth, and then reinvest back into Path B to make everyone's lives better. But the tipping point, when do we reduce staff, right? So most organizations get this absolutely wrong. Okay, one second. They see a 26% productivity gain and cut 26% of people, right? The safe tipping point is where F times N is greater than or equal to the value of 1, where the automation fraction, the team size equals at least one full person's worth of work, right? And of course, the math is in the book, and this will vary on team size, composition, all the fun little nuances of human capital management, right? Okay, however, as you're calculating this, you see that with buffers in bracket. Okay, so you must add buffers for distribution, stability, and coverage. So the formula, actually applying the formula, the tipping point formula, right, which is essentially the aggregation of the other math that you got to do, it's in the book, the formula prevents a disaster, right? Cutting out too early pushes to remain staff above baseline workload, right? So you're not getting rid of people too early, right? Because if you do, the people that are left work harder, burnout spikes, and your quality is going to degrade. So you need people do the same output with fewer hands while pretending it's the same job, right? Without calculating the tipping points. So stage reduction. This is the better approach, right? So when automation reaches roughly where F times N equals 1, i.e. the automation factor equals one person's worth of work, remove one person, don't fire them, right? Just remove them from the team and watch what happens over about 2 quarters, right? Monitor your error rates, track team sentiment, check if the remaining people are actually absorbing the work comfortably. Like, can you do this job now that your partner's gone? Or if they're just working harder and hiding the strain because they don't want to let their boss know, right? So only when you're confident that the AI deployment reliably handles what work do you approach do you approach a second reduction? This validation prevents a catastrophic error because sometimes an AI system that looked good in pilots performs poorly at scale. Where have we seen that before, right? So by reducing staff and incoming resources in stages, you catch those failures before you unnecessarily displace your people and disturb your corporate culture. All right, so that leads us to 3 possible futures for literal humanity, right? Because again, in every organization, in every government, in every combination, in every asset and facet of your life where agentic AI is being deployed, if it has an on switch, it's likely being deployed there, right? We really face 2 futures that are going to reflect the values of our internal values of the choices that we make today. Extraction. This is everywhere. This is techno-oligarchy. It's Victorian wealth concentration. And honestly, if you want to see a sci-fi equivalent, go on Netflix and check out the series Altered Carbon or read the books, because that's where we're headed at this point in time. Path B is flourishing. That's that mix of B and C, right? So you get 4-day work weeks, eventually down to 3-day, 2-day. You have shared prosperity, post-scarcity model to boldly go where? Exactly, because we're architecting the future, right? We're building a better future for humanity. That's the point. That's why we're here. That's why we do what we do. Okay. Or you have this mixed thing where, like, hey, we're going to distribute some gains here. We're going to let the oligarchs get all their pieces and pies and all that stuff. So, I mean, okay, that's kind of like some sectors are thriving, right? Like tech and AI is thriving right now. Farming's kind of tanking, and you see this economic turmoil all over the world, right? As different people make different decisions based on their values. Okay, but again, what you're doing when you deploy agentic AI, you're codifying your decisions into your operations. What you're getting when you deploy agentic AI, you're codifying your values and your character into your operations. So the question becomes, isn't which path is likely, it's which path are we, humanity, going to choose? Because see, technology doesn't determine the outcome. Your choices do, as a leader, as a person, as a human interacting across our society. And conduct is character, and in the future, our children will reap what we sow. So let's look at what we're going to do to make life better for everybody. We are living in an inherited architecture. We're moving into the next chapter. So we're still using schedules designed for a world that no longer exists. The 5-day work week, mentioned that earlier, that was Henry Ford in 1926, factory models, right? The 8-hour workday that we're on was industrial era labor negotiations. School schedules are synced to agricultural calendars so children could help with harvest. None of these were designed for knowledge work, which we all do now, and certainly not for an AI-augmented workforce. They're inherited constraints on our society, not laws of nature. For the first time in history, we have the technology, we can rebuild him, $6 million man, to redesign time, work, and learning from first principles, right? Because again, AI handles the coordination that once required synchronized human schedules, right? Remote work provided locations constraints were artificial. Personalized learning replaces batch process education. So now we can ask, what would we design if we started from scratch? A 4-day work week, a 3-day work week, project-based work with weeks off in between, right? Continuous learning integrated into work time. AI makes all of these things structurally possible throughout our entire human society, okay? The constraint is not technology, it's institutional inertia. This is the way it's always been done. And the political will, it's hard to actually redesign our society. But luckily, some people actually care enough to maybe write a book about it and how to do it. So let's talk about your career, right? So the traditional 30-year career in one role is becoming impossible, right? Because skills now have a half-life of roughly 2.5 to 3 years. So by 2030, it's projected that 39% of workers' core skills will become obsolete, according to the World Economic Forum. Portfolio careers are now emerging as a resilience mechanism on an individual level. So instead of now, I am a business analyst, which is a very brittle identity when analyst tools keep changing, right? It becomes, I am skilled in X, Y, and Z, currently applying them in projects A and B, learning C and D for future roles, right? So in the United States of America, 8.9 million US workers now hold multiple jobs, which is the highest since 2009, but AI enables portfolio work by solving the coordination problem. Remember, our society is designed around human information processing and latency, both of which are essentially mitigated at this point moving forward. So now that means learning systems must transform, right? So learning systems, i.e. our schooling, both internal to our organizations, whether it's public schools, whether it's corporate training efforts, or external, just how we move through the world and learn things, has to change, right? Because personalized AI tutors adapt to each learner's pace and style. We have just-in-time micro-learning that can replace 4-month courses, right? You learn what you need when you need it without all the fluff. continuous credentialing instead of one-time degrees, time to competence now shrinks from 50 to 70% for most skills in that environment. This is already happening. AI coding assistants are now teaching developers new languages in weeks instead of months. Hello. The question is whether we redesign education systems to embrace it or whether they remain stuck in a batch processing model. Throughout all of this, there is the remaining through line: conduct is character. Okay? The future that our children will inherit depends on the decisions being made right now in rooms like this one, right? Literally, in the room that you're in right now, you are making the decisions that will define your children and grandchildren's future. It's not your Congresses, it's not your parliaments, it's not in your Silicon Valley boardrooms, it's in your organization. So when you deploy AI and you see productivity gains, what do? What are you going to do, right? A, B, and C, okay? The math is neutral, the formulas work, and the question is, what are you going to build with them, right? This is a moral choice disguised as a technical one. Don't be confused. But hey, what can you do now? Because there's so much going on and there's so much happening, right? So what can you actually do? First, map your current labor baseline before deploying AI, right? You got to know where you're starting. Okay, second, you need to measure your freed capacity explicitly. Don't guess at this, right? That comes from outlining your processes and workflows. Then use the labor formulas I gave you in my book. They're free of charge because I know as soon as somebody buys the book, they're just going to be all over the internet, hopefully. Go forth and prosper humanity, right? And third, design path B and C scenarios alongside that path A. Don't just default to layoffs because it's what everyone else does and they're improving the quarterly report, right? Short-term thinking. We need to stop that as a society. Fourth, choose constantly based on your own values, not on defaults, right? And fifth, communicate openly with your teams about the choices that you're making, right? Because they're humans. We're all people, and they deserve to know that this is a choice, not an inevitability, right? And transparency builds trust. The stakes are extraordinary. The choices made about AI deployment in the next 5 to 10 years, which is again the launch of the 6K wave, will determine whether technology becomes a tool for shared prosperity or concentrated power. The math is neutral. The labor formula can justify mass layoffs just as easily as it can justify 4 or 3-day work weeks, okay? The choices aren't neutral. They will shape your organization's culture, they will shape your organization's competitive position, and the lives of everyone that works for you and with you. And they will also shape the institutional DNA of our society that gets carried into the next wave. So choose wisely. Questions. The formulas are tools. What you build with them is up to you. The labor formula, the tipping point calculation, the 3 paths, these are all decision support instruments that are being published in my book. They make the invisible visible, right? They let you model consequences before you act. Use them to choose consciously. And if you'd like to dig deeper into the mathematics, the full formulas and evolutionary optimization results are in my book. So let's go ahead, open it up. I'll stop sharing, and I'd